Hi everybody, Jimmy Chin here. Today I'm going to cover some of the questions I've been asked. Can you walk us through the evolution of your camera kit over the years? How has your gear adapted to the challenges of each environment? I think one of the biggest evolutions for me as a filmmaker and a photographer actually came along when Canon made the 5D. And it was able to shoot video and stills on the same camera body. And I was also able to use my photography lenses on my filming camera, which, at the time I was shooting on these little cameras with terrible lenses, and all of a sudden shooting on the 5D with actual photo lenses really brought up the cinematic quality of the filming I was able to do. So probably the biggest evolution was having a still camera that could also shoot quality video. Obviously, that makes it a lot lighter. I only need one tool to do two jobs. It just created a lot of efficiencies in my work. While I'm not going to give you an exact list of the camera bodies that I need and the lenses that I bring, it's more of a mentality, because I found that when you are working within certain constraints, it actually pushes you creatively. It makes you find creative solutions to the different problems and challenges that you face on a shoot. So I've actually kind of reduced the amount of equipment that I bring on shoots, and particularly on expeditions and in the mountains. I found that, a couple lenses or even sometimes one lens is enough for me to do a lot of coverage and really push me to, position differently or anticipate shots differently or move into a different space or get up earlier, or there are different solutions to the problems that I face on shoots like that. And I think that that's a big part about being a photographer is being adaptable and working with what you have and finding creative solutions within the constraints that are placed upon you. How do you decide which Canon gear to bring for vastly different expeditions like alpine mountains versus desert dunes? In general, I'm pretty much bringing the same kit for different environments and different expeditions, whether that's alpine mountains or desert dunes. The equipment that changes is actually the clothing, the gear that I need that's outside of the camera equipment. And I've talked about this before, but you have to pay as much attention to all of the other equipment, not just the camera equipment, for the environments that you're going in, because that is going to help you be comfortable, be able to protect your gear in the right way. And those are the details that make a huge difference in shooting these sort of adventures. What are some of the core photography principles that remain constant for you, regardless of the gear or the environment? I think some of the main principles that I function under when I'm thinking about going on a shoot are understanding what I'm trying to capture and thinking about how I'm going to capture it, anticipating problems, finding plan A, understanding plan B, knowing plan C, having that adaptability. Adaptability is a huge part of being a great photographer and being able to roll with the punches on different shoots. Things rarely go as planned, and I think if you go into a shoot knowing that that's the case, you have backup plans. And I think that's a mentality that's really important creatively as well. Sometimes you get really focused on the single shot that you really want, and you're missing all kinds of other shots. So you really have to keep your eyes open and your mind open. Has the Canon gear helped you push creative boundaries in your expeditions? Canon gear has absolutely helped me push the creative boundaries on expeditions. I've talked about it before, but when the Canon 5D came out, and I was able to film and shoot photography on one camera body, that was a huge step for me, because weight is such a big issue. It just allowed me to move faster. It allowed me to just use one tool to be able to do 2 different jobs. And that allows you just more time, creative bandwidth, spending less energy getting to positions, and overall just kind of lowers the amount of stress that happens when you're trying to fiddle with 2 different camera bodies. But what it did allow me to do was to be able to film and shoot photos almost simultaneously, one after the other. And that really opened up a lot of opportunities for me. What's your favorite camera lens for your current setup and why? So if I had to choose my favorite camera setup, I would basically have 2 different setups. If I could only bring one body and one lens for traveling and sort of street photography or just kind of general photography, I would have the Canon R5 II and the RF 24-70 2.8. If I'm in the mountains and weight is an issue and I just want to grab a camera and run out the door and go as light as possible, my favorite camera setup is the Canon R5 II with the RF 24-105 f4. It's a super light lens, really sharp, always does the job, and just allows me to move a little bit faster. You know, if you're really interested in pursuing photography, I think having the right tools is obviously really important. Start simple, get a simple camera setup, a simple lens, and just start shooting. And I think it's really important to look at a lot of different photography through a photographer's eyes. How did this person get this shot? Why do I like this shot? Why don't I like this shot? You know, how did this person create this image? Just having those questions about the photography that you're looking at is really important. And I think it's important to look at a lot of different genres of photography. Fine art photography, conflict photography, fashion photography, portrait photography. Look at all the greats. Understand kind of the approach that all these different artists have come to their craft. And I think that understanding and the thought processes of creating images is a really good place to make photography fun for you, because all of a sudden you are looking at the world in all these different ways, and then you kind of find your own language and your own ideas for how you think about photography. And that's what makes your photography special. Everybody is different. But understanding a broad range of photography in terms of the genres and categories, and looking at photographers' work and reading a little bit about them and how they came to their work and how they think about their work is really, I think, an opportunity to gain a lot of depth in terms of your photography. So have fun out there, look at a lot of great work and create your own great work. So Jimmy Chin, Canon Explorer of Light. If you are interested in more tips and ideas and thoughts around photography, follow Canon USA's YouTube channel.